You got the thing. Maybe it was the title. Maybe it was the income level, the recognition, the role you'd been working towards for years. And when it arrived, you waited. You waited for the feeling that was supposed to come with it. And it didn't show up. Or it showed up for a moment, flickered, and then disappeared before you could actually settle into it. And in its place came something you weren't expecting. A flatness, a quiet, now what? A strange, faint sense that something was still missing, even though from the outside, your life looked like the answers to someone else's prayer. If you've been here, this video is for you. I'm Sokuntha. I spent over 20 years in corporate leadership, reached director level, built a career I was proud of, and then, quietly, gradually burnt out. Not because I failed, because I spent years building everything on top of external proof, and no amount of proof was ever quite enough. The stability under pressure method came from that, from having to figure out from the inside what was actually going on. At the end of this video, you'll understand one thing clearly: why this is not a gratitude problem, why it's not a mindset problem, and what it actually is. Because once you see it, the whole pattern starts to make sense. I want to tell you a story. I was born in a refugee camp at the Thai-Cambodia border, left as a baby and raised in France. I was 20 years old the first time I went to Cambodia. While I was there, I visited a place called Artisan Co, a social company preserving traditional Cambodian handicraft techniques that had nearly been wiped out. I stood there watching the artisans work, and I thought, this mission is extraordinary. And on the plane home to France, I looked out the window and silently said to myself, one day I will come back and work for that company. 15 years later, it happened. Not in the way I had imagined. A marriage, a separation, a guest house in Siem Reap I never asked for, a life that felt like it was happening to me rather than by me. And in the middle of all of that mess, I found a job listing for Artisan Co. I contacted them. I got the role. And for a while, honestly, it was everything. The work mattered. The mission felt real. I threw myself into it completely and I rose quickly. Business Development Director. And I remember thinking, okay, this is it. This is what all of it was building toward. And on paper, it was. I had the title, I had the responsibility, I had the role that looked from every angle like what I had said I wanted. I felt like I was finally doing something meaningful with my life, almost like if I was finally giving back to my country. But behind that, I was suffocating, not because of the work itself, not yet, that came later with a different problem, but because I was waiting for the feeling to match the picture, and it just didn't. I'd hit a milestone and feel a brief lift, and then, almost immediately, something in me would recalibrate, and the next thing on the list would quietly become the new measure of whether I'd actually made it. I thought I was just ambitious. I thought that's what tries felt like, always wanting more, always moving towards the next thing. And I was partly right. But I was missing something I didn't have the language for yet. Here's what I came to understand about that feeling. The flatness after the win, it's not ingratitude. It's not a sign that you chose the wrong goal. It's what happens when you build your sense of who you are on top of what you achieve, rather than underneath it. Let me explain what I mean. There's a version of success that is built entirely around external proof. The title, the income, the recognition, the respect of people whose opinion you decided somewhere along the way was the measure of whether you'd made it. And when you spend long enough building towards those markers, something quietly happens. The markers becomes the goal, the external validation becomes the metric, and your own internal experience of your life, your satisfaction, your sense of meaning gets gradually handed over to outcomes you can't fully control. This is why success can feel hollow. Not because you chose the wrong goal, but because somewhere in the pursuit of them, you stopped being the one who decided what success meant to you and became a very high-performing executor of what it was supposed to look like. And here's the part that nobody talks about. Achievement works on the reward system in a very specific way. Each milestone gives you a brief hit. And honestly, if you pay attention, it feels more like a relief than joy. Followed almost immediately by your internal baseline shifting upwards, the bar moves, the standards shift, and the feeling you were chasing becomes slightly further away each time you reach for it. This is not a character flow. This is what sustained high achievement does over time when the whole system is pointed at external outcomes. You are not broken. You are running a system that was never designed to produce the internal experience that you were actually looking for, because it was never going to. So what are you actually looking for? Because there is something underneath the achievement drive that doesn't get named enough. And it sounds something like this. I want to feel like I'm enough, not because I proved it again, just because I am. I want the next win to feel like a rival, not like temporary relief before the next thing. I want my internal experience of my own life to actually match what it looks like from the outside. That's not too much to want. That's not ungrateful. That's the most reasonable thing in the world. But here's where it gets interesting. The reason those things keeps feeling just out of reach is that you've been trying to get there from the outside in. More achievement, better title, higher income, more proof. And it doesn't work. Not because you're doing it wrong, because you cannot get there that way. The woman who stopped feeling that way, they don't achieve less. They don't soften their standards or decide that wanting more is somehow the problem. What shifts is where they're building from. They stop building their identity on top of the achievement and start building it underneath it. Stable internal foundation first. Expansion from that stability, not in search of it. And that changes everything about how the next win feels. Because when you arrive at the next milestone from that place, you actually feel it. Not briefly, not followed immediately by the bar moving again. You actually land there. That is exactly the work that we do together in the Stable Under Pressure Challenge. 5 days, live with me, 1 hour a day. We name the patterns, like the one we've been talking about today. We understand what's running underneath them. And we start building the internal foundation that pressure has been quietly wearing down. Every 4 to 6 weeks, I run a new round. The link to join the next round is in the description below. If what we've talked about today has landed, that's the next step. I want to leave you with something. The question underneath this whole conversation is not really about achievement. It's this. Who are you when you strip away the title, the track record, the proof? Not as a threat, as a genuine question. Because the woman who starts to feel their success differently, who start to experience it as something that actually nourishes them rather than just validates them, they're the one who stop needing the achievement to tell them who they were. They already knew. The goal was never the feeling. The feeling was always about the foundation. If this resonated, subscribe. There's more coming that belongs to that conversation. Understanding your pattern is the beginning of your power. No one owns you.